What happens when a conversation about redemption turns into a battle over authenticity? When Kelly Clarkson sits down with Jelly Roll, what starts as a celebration of his incredible journey from prison to platinum records takes a sharp turn that nobody saw coming. The tension builds with every question, every answer, until finally, one moment changes everything. If you want to see how this unfolds, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below telling me whose side you're on. Kelly Clarkson leans forward in her chair, that warm smile spreading across her face as she welcomes Jelly Roll to her show. The audience erupts in applause, and you can feel the energy in the studio. This is supposed to be a feel-good moment, a chance to celebrate one of music's most unlikely success stories. Jelly Roll walks out, acknowledging the crowd with a wave, and settles into the guest chair across from Kelly. Welcome, Kelly says, her voice carrying that genuine enthusiasm she's known for. I have been waiting to have this conversation with you for so long. Your story, your music, everything you've accomplished. It's just incredible. Jelly Roll nods, a slight smile on his face. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Kelly jumps right in, her excitement barely contained. So let's talk about this journey because it's not your typical path to success. You went from being incarcerated multiple times to selling out arenas. That's not something we see every day. What was that turning point for you? You know, Kelly, Jelly Roll begins, his voice carrying that distinctive rasp. There wasn't just one moment. It was a series of moments where I had to look at myself and decide if I wanted to keep destroying my life or if I wanted to build something. Music became my salvation, but it wasn't easy. Nothing about this has been easy. Kelly nods enthusiastically. Right, and I think that's what resonates with so many people. Your authenticity. The fact that you don't hide from your past. You embrace it. You use it. I do, Jelly Roll responds. Because my past is part of who I am. I can't separate myself from it, and I wouldn't want to. Those experiences, as painful as they were, they made me who I am today. The conversation flows naturally for the first few minutes. They talk about his music, his family, the emotional weight of his lyrics. Kelly brings up his advocacy work, his efforts to help people struggling with addiction. Everything seems perfectly calibrated for an inspiring interview. Then Kelly shifts in her seat, and there's a change in her tone. It's subtle, but it's there. I want to ask you about something that I think a lot of people wonder about. You've built this brand around being real, being authentic, being the voice for people who feel forgotten. But now you're on every major platform. You're working with major labels. You're sitting here on my show. Do you ever worry that success might distance you from the people you're trying to represent? The question hangs in the air for a moment. Jelly Roll's expression doesn't change immediately, but you can see something flicker in his eyes. What do you mean by that? Kelly seems to sense she's touched a nerve, but she continues. I mean, when you were making music in Nashville, putting out independent albums, sleeping in your car sometimes, you were living the struggle you were singing about. Now you've got the success, the money, the recognition. How do you stay connected to that reality when your reality has changed so dramatically? Jelly Roll leans back slightly. Kelly, with all due respect, success doesn't erase trauma. Money doesn't heal wounds. I still carry everything I've been through, every single day. The difference is, now I have a platform to talk about it, to help other people who are going through what I went through. I hear you, Kelly responds. But there's a difference between remembering where you came from and actually living in that space. Right, you're not that person anymore. You're a successful artist with resources, with opportunities that most people in the situations you sing about will never have. The audience is quieter now. You can feel the shift in energy. This isn't the warm fuzzy interview anyone expected. Jelly Roll's jaw tightens slightly. So what are you saying? That because I found success, I should stop talking about my experiences? That I'm not allowed to advocate for people who are struggling just because I'm not currently sleeping in a cell? Kelly raises her hands in a placating gesture. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm asking how you navigate that space. Because I think it's a legitimate question. When artists achieve the kind of success you have, there's always this concern about authenticity, about whether the message stays true or becomes performative. Performative, Jelly Roll repeats, and there's an edge to his voice now. You think what I do is performative? I'm not saying that, Kelly clarifies quickly. I'm saying it's a question that comes up, and I think your fans would want to know how you think about it. Jelly Roll shakes his head slowly. Kelly, I've been to prison. I've overdosed. I've lost people I love to addiction and violence. I've sat in cells wondering if I'd ever see my daughter again. Those aren't stories I picked up to sell records. That's my life. And yeah, I'm successful now, but that doesn't mean I've forgotten what it feels like to be hopeless. If anything, it makes me more committed to using my voice because I know how rare it is for someone like me to get this opportunity. Kelly nods, but she's not backing down. I understand that, and I respect it. But don't you think there's something to be said about the fact that you're now part of the system? The music industry, the media machine, all of it. You're working within the very structures that often exploit the communities you're trying to represent. The tension is palpable now. Jelly Roll leans forward, his elbows on his knees. So what would you have me do? Turn down success? Refuse to work with people who can help me reach more people with my message. Stay small so I can maintain some kind of street credibility. That's not what I'm suggesting, Kelly says, though her tone suggests she's trying to navigate carefully now. I'm just trying to understand how you reconcile those two things. The anti-establishment message with the very establishment platform. Jelly Roll's voice rises slightly. You want to know how I reconcile it? I reconcile it by remembering that every time I step on a stage, every time I release a song, I'm speaking for people who don't have a voice. I'm not trying to be anti-establishment for the sake of it. I'm trying to change the establishment from the inside. And if that means working with major labels or doing interviews on talk shows, then that's what I'll do, because the alternative is staying silent. And I can't do that. Kelly opens her mouth to respond, but Jelly Roll isn't finished. You know what the real question is? Kelly, the real question is, why does my authenticity get questioned just because I found success? Why is it that someone like me, who came from nothing, who fought through hell to get here, has to constantly prove that I'm still real? Would you ask this question to someone who came from privilege and decided to advocate for social issues? Or is it only people like me who have to justify our right to speak? The audience is completely silent now. This has gone from a friendly interview to something much more intense. Kelly takes a breath, clearly trying to maintain her composure and professionalism. I think you're misunderstanding my intention, Kelly says carefully. I'm asking these questions because I think they're important conversations to have. Not to attack you, but to explore these dynamics that exist in the industry. But why am I the one who has to answer for it? Jelly Roll asks, his frustration evident. Why am I the one sitting here defending my right to be successful and still care about the issues I came from? I didn't create this system, Kelly. I'm just trying to survive in it and help other people survive in it too. Kelly shifts in her seat, and you can see she's trying to regain control of the conversation. Her media training is kicking in, that ability to smooth over rough moments and redirect. But there's something in Jelly Roll's eyes now, a fire that wasn't there when he first sat down. This isn't just about a question anymore. This is about something deeper. I hear your frustration, Kelly says, her voice softer now, almost and I want to be clear. I'm not questioning your right to be successful. What I'm trying to understand, and what I think a lot of people wonder about, is how artists maintain their edge, their rawness, when they're suddenly living a completely different life. It's not an attack. It's genuinely trying to understand the evolution. Jelly Roll doesn't look convinced. He's staring at Kelly with an intensity that makes the whole studio feel smaller. The evolution. Kelly, let me tell you about evolution. Evolution is waking up every day and choosing not to go back to the person I was. Evolution is carrying the weight of my past while trying to build a future for my kids. Evolution is knowing that no matter how much money I make or how many awards I win, there are people who will always see me as a convict first and an artist second. And now, sitting here, I'm starting to wonder if you're one of them. The accusation hangs heavy in the air. Kelly's eyes widen slightly, and she shakes her head. That's not fair. That's not what I'm saying at all. Then what are you saying? Jelly Roll presses, because from where I'm sitting, it feels like you're questioning whether I have the right to speak on these issues now that I'm not actively suffering. Like my pain has an expiration date based on my tax bracket. Kelly takes a deep breath, and you can see her trying to choose her words carefully. What I'm asking about is the narrative, the story that gets sold to audiences. Because let's be honest, redemption stories sell. Underdog stories sell. And I think it's worth examining whether those stories sometimes become commodified in ways that aren't always helpful. Commodified, Jelly Roll repeats. And there's almost a laugh in his voice, but it's not a happy one. You think I commodified my trauma? You think I sat down one day and thought, how can I package my addiction and my time in prison to make a profit? That's not what I said. Kelly interjects quickly. But it's what you implied. Jelly Roll fires back. And that's the problem. People like you, people who've never had to fight for anything real, you get to sit there and philosophize about authenticity and narratives, while people like me have to constantly justify that our stories are real, that our pain was real, that our transformation is real. Kelly's face flushes slightly. You can see she's getting defensive now, and her own frustration is starting to show. People like me, you don't know anything about my story, about what I've been through. You're right, I don't, Jelly Roll says, his voice dropping lower but somehow more intense. But I do know that you didn't grow up selling drugs to survive. You didn't spend years of your life locked up. You didn't have to claw your way out of a hole so deep that most people never make it out. So forgive me if I'm not particularly interested in your academic analysis of whether my success makes me less authentic. The audience is completely frozen. This is not what anyone came here to see. Kelly's producer is probably losing their mind in the control room. But neither Kelly nor Jelly Roll seems concerned about that right now. Kelly's voice has an edge to it now. You know what? You're right. I didn't have your exact experiences. But that doesn't mean I don't have the right to ask questions. That doesn't mean these aren't legitimate things to explore. And honestly, if you can't handle being asked thoughtful questions about your platform and your message, then maybe you need to examine why that bothers you so much. Jelly Roll laughs, but it's a bitter sound. Thoughtful questions. Is that what you call this? Because it sounds a lot like you're trying to tear down someone who's actually trying to make a difference. And for what? Good television. A viral moment? That's insulting, Kelly says, her voice rising now. I have built my career on having real conversations with people, on asking the questions that matter. Just because you don't like the questions doesn't make them invalid. And just because you phrase your judgment as questions doesn't make it less judgmental. Jelly Roll counters. You want to talk about Let's talk about how talk shows commodify struggle. How you bring people on, ask them to open up about their trauma, get your emotional moment for the cameras, and then everyone goes home feeling good about themselves while nothing actually changes. Kelly's jaw drops slightly. That is completely unfair. I have used this platform to shine light on important issues, to give voice to people who wouldn't otherwise have one. Have you? Jelly Roll asks. Or have you used their stories to make compelling television? Because there's a difference, Kelly. There's a difference between amplifying voices and exploiting them for content. The silence that follows is deafening. Kelly is visibly angry now, her professional composure cracking. I cannot believe you're sitting here accusing me of exploitation when I invited you on my show to celebrate your success, to give you a platform to share your message. You invited me here to fit me into whatever narrative you'd already decided on. Jelly Roll says. You wanted the redemption story, the feel-good transformation. But the moment I don't perform it the way you want, suddenly I'm the problem. Suddenly, my authenticity is questionable. That is not what's happening here. Kelly insists. What's happening here is that I asked you some challenging questions, and you're reacting defensively instead of engaging with them honestly. Jelly Roll stands up suddenly, and the movement sends a ripple through the studio. Kelly looks up at him, surprise written across her face. Where are you going? I'm done. Jelly Roll says simply, I came here thinking this was going to be a conversation between two people who understand what it means to overcome obstacles and find success. But instead, it feels like an interrogation, like I'm on trial for having the audacity to be successful while still caring about the people I left behind. You're being dramatic, Kelly says, but there's uncertainty in her voice now. Sit down. Let's talk through this. Dramatic, Jelly Roll's voice rises. You just spent the last 15 minutes questioning everything about who I am and what I do, and I'm being dramatic for not wanting to sit here and take it. No, Kelly, I'm not going to sit here and let you or anyone else make me feel like I need to apologize for making it out. I'm not going to defend my right to be successful and still give a damn about people who are struggling. Kelly stands up to now, and you can see her trying to salvage the situation. Look, clearly, we've hit a nerve here. And maybe I could have phrased some things differently, but walking off isn't the answer. Let's sit back down and have a real conversation about this. This is a real conversation, Jelly Roll says, and the reality is that I don't owe you or anyone else an explanation for who I am or how I got here. I've paid my dues. I've earned my place. And I'm not going to stand here and justify it to someone who's never had to fight the way I've had to fight. So that's it? Kelly asks, and there's genuine confusion mixed with anger in her voice. You're just going to walk away because you didn't like my questions. I'm walking away because this stopped being a conversation and started being an attack. Jelly Roll responds, and I've spent enough of my life being attacked. I'm not doing it anymore, especially not for entertainment. Kelly throws her hands up. This is ridiculous. You're making this into something it's not, am I? Jelly Roll challenges. Then tell me, Kelly, what was the point of all those questions? What were you trying to get at? Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you wanted to prove some point about success, corrupting authenticity, and I wasn't playing along with your script. My script. Kelly's voice is sharp now. I don't have a script. I have questions. Questions that a lot of people have. Questions that deserve answers. And I gave you answers. Jelly Roll says, you just didn't like them because they didn't fit whatever narrative you were trying to create. You wanted me to admit that success has changed me, that I'm not the same person, that maybe I'm not as connected to my roots as I claim to be, but I'm not going to give you that because it's not true. The tension between them is almost physical now. The audience doesn't know where to look. This is beyond uncomfortable. This is raw conflict playing out in real time. Kelly takes a step forward, her hand extended slightly as if trying to physically stop Jelly Roll from leaving. Wait, just wait. Can we just take a breath here and reset? This doesn't have to end like this. Jelly Roll stops, but he doesn't sit back down. He's still standing, his body language screaming that he's done with this entire situation. Kelly, there's nothing to reset. You've made your point. You think success has compromised who I am. You think I'm selling a story instead of living a truth. And I disagree. There's nothing else to say. That's not my point, Kelly says, and now there's almost a pleading quality to her voice. My point was to have a deeper conversation about these dynamics in the industry, about how success changes things, whether we want it to or not. It wasn't personal. Everything about this was personal. Jelly Roll responds, you didn't ask me about the industry in general. You asked me specifically if I was still authentic. You asked me specifically if my message had become performative. You questioned me, my story, my commitment. How is that not personal? Kelly runs a hand through her hair, clearly frustrated. Because these are questions that apply to everyone in this position. Every artist who comes from struggle and finds success has to navigate this. I'm not singling you out. I'm trying to have a conversation that matters. To who? Jelly Roll asks, who does this conversation matter to? Because it doesn't matter to the people I'm trying to help. It doesn't matter to the kids sitting in a cell right now wondering if their life is over. It doesn't matter to the parents who've lost children to addiction. What matters to them is that someone who's been through it is speaking up, is using whatever platform they have to shine a light on these issues. They don't care about your philosophical debate about authenticity. Kelly shakes her head. That's reductive. Of course, those things matter, but so does examining the systems and structures that shape how these messages get delivered. Both things can be true. Maybe, Jelly Roll concedes, but there's a time and a place for that examination. And ambushing someone on your show, isn't it? If you wanted to have a deep conversation about industry dynamics, you should have told me that's what this was going to be. Instead, you invited me here under the pretense of celebrating my journey, and then you turned it into an interrogation. I didn't ambush you, Kelly protests. These are natural follow-up questions based on the conversation we were having. Natural. Jelly Roll's voice carries disbelief. There was nothing natural about the way you questioned my authenticity. Nothing natural about suggesting that my success somehow invalidates my message. That wasn't curiosity, Kelly. That was judgment, dressed up as journalism. Kelly's face hardens. You know what? Maybe I was being judgmental. Maybe I do have questions about how artists like you navigate success while maintaining connection to the communities you claim to represent. Is that such a crime? Is it wrong to want accountability from people who build their brands on struggle? Accountability. Jelly Roll's voice rises again. You want to talk about accountability? I've been accountable every single day of my life since I got clean. I've been accountable to my family, to my fans, to myself. I don't need to be accountable to you or to anyone who thinks they have the right to judge whether my transformation is legitimate enough. Everyone with a platform should be accountable. Kelly shoots back. That's part of having influence. That's part of being in the public eye. You don't get to just say whatever you want and expect nobody to question it. I'm not saying nobody should question it, Jelly Roll counters. I'm saying the way you questioned it was disrespectful. There's a difference between healthy skepticism and outright dismissal, and what you did felt a lot like dismissal. The audience is shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some people are looking at their phones, probably already posting about this on social media. This is going to be everywhere within hours. Both Kelly and Jelly Roll seem to realize this at the same time, and there's a brief moment where they just look at each other, the weight of what's happening settling over them. Kelly speaks first, her voice quieter now. I didn't mean to dismiss you. If that's how it came across, I'm sorry, but I stand by my questions. I think they're important questions, and I think they're the wrong questions, Jelly Roll says, his voice also lower but no less intense. The right question isn't whether success has changed me. The right question is whether I'm using my success to make a difference. And I am. Every single day, I'm trying to use whatever platform I have to help people. That's what matters. Not whether some talk show host thinks I'm authentic enough. Kelly flinches at the phrase talk show host, and you can see it's hit a nerve. Is that all you think I am? Just some talk show host asking gotcha questions. Right now. Yeah, Jelly Roll says bluntly. That's exactly what it feels like. And I'm not interested in playing that game. I've played too many games in my life, Kelly. I've hustled, I've schemed, I've done things I'm not proud of to survive. But the one thing I don't do anymore is pretend. I don't pretend to be something I'm not. And I don't pretend that conversations like this are productive when they're really just attempts to create controversy. That's not what this is, Kelly insists, but her voice lacks conviction now. Then show this exactly as it happened. Jelly Roll challenges. Show the whole conversation. Let people decide for themselves who was out of line. Kelly doesn't answer immediately. The silence stretches out, uncomfortable and heavy. Finally, she nods slowly. Fine. Good, Jelly Roll says, and he starts walking toward the edge of the stage. Kelly watches him, her expression a mixture of anger and confusion. So you're really leaving? He pauses, turns back. You know what the real tragedy is, Kelly? I actually respected you. I thought you were one of the good ones, someone who understood what it meant to be real in a fake industry. But this showed me I was wrong. That's not fair, Kelly says quietly. Maybe not, Jelly Roll agrees. But it's how I feel, and at least I'm being honest about it. And with that, he walks off the stage. Just walks right off, leaving Kelly standing there alone. The camera's still rolling, capturing every second of this disaster. The audience doesn't know whether to applaud or stay silent, creating this weird scattered noise that makes everything more awkward. Kelly stands there for what feels like forever, then turns to the audience with a forced smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Well, that was intense. We're going to take a quick break, but nobody's thinking about what comes next. Everyone's thinking about what they just witnessed. The complete breakdown of what was supposed to be a friendly interview. The moment when politeness gave way to raw honesty, and the result was combustion. This interview is going to be talked about for weeks. People are going to take sides. Some will say Kelly was just doing her job, asking tough questions that needed to be asked. Others will say she questioned Jelly Roll's authenticity in a way that was disrespectful given everything he's overcome. The debate will rage on social media, in comment sections, everywhere. But at the center of it all is a simple question, the same question that caused all this tension. When someone rises from struggle to success, does that change who they fundamentally are? Does having money and fame mean you can't speak authentically about hardship anymore? Or is the real authenticity in using whatever platform you have to help others, regardless of your current circumstances? Jelly Roll clearly believes the latter. Kelly seemed to be questioning it, and that fundamental disagreement created a clash that neither of them could navigate. Sometimes, conversations that should be simple become complicated because they touch on deeper issues about identity and integrity. What do you think? Was Kelly out of line with her questions, or was Jelly Roll too defensive? Drop a comment below and let me know where you stand. And if you want to see more breakdowns of moments like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button.